What up, witches, and welcome to Witchin and Bitchin, a podcast. I'm your host, Darren.
And I'm Temperance. How are you all?
As you guys can see, sadly, Vicky can't be with us today, but we have a really special interview organized for today. So we've actually got Temperance Alden here. She's an author of The Year of the Witch, which you can see up here behind me. She's also a teacher and folk witch based in South Florida. So Temperance began her spiritual journey with family traditions in 2001 and has spent over 19 years of practice devoted to growing and developing her personal path of witchcraft and paganism. In her free time, she's most likely reading too many books and blogging her way through the internet. So can you please make a nice big warm welcome for Temperance Alden? Yay! Insert clapping here. So Temperance, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So obviously, for those that don't know Temperance, she's actually over in Florida at the moment. But you're originally from New England, is that correct?
I am. I've been all over. I'm originally from New England, so I'm from Rhode Island. My family's from Massachusetts. I've been in Florida. I've been in Oregon. I've been in Montana. I've been in Japan. I've been wherever you could be. I've been in Ohio. I've been where you could be. I've been there probably.
Wow, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Based on a few of the things I know about you, does that mean you're into anime?
Okay, as a child, I was super into it. As an adult, like I just sometimes I rewatch the things I like.
Is there any particular animes that you're into?
I like I'm basic. I liked like Tenchi Muyo, Gundam Wing, Inuyasha, Bleach. Like
You've literally listed like half of my anime connection collection. Wait, did you just say you're a basic witch? I'm joking. I'm joking. It's a little coin term that Vicky and I joke around with. That you know when you say a basic bitch, but I change it to basic witch because I call Vicky a basic witch all the time because sometimes she's like, "Oh, I'm just kind of basic," and I'm like, "Oh, honey, you don't say that you're basic."
if the shoe fits.
See, for me, it's if the tiara fits. Like, so anyway, we as we always start with our interviews, I would like to ask you. So, Temperance, what is your definition of a modern day witch?
I am not groundbreaking in this. I believe that a modern day witch is anyone who identifies as one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that you have to have been more into it, and I don't necessarily believe that you have to have years and years of study to call yourself a witch. Right at the moment, at the precipice in which you decide I'm a witch, that is when you become a witch. We can't ascribe being a witch to anyone who doesn't identify that way, and we can't take it away from someone who does.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And so I guess then, how do you identify? Like, do you actually use the term witch, or are there other terms that you use? Like,
I
how do you
prefer
identify
to use the term practitioner.
that? Mm-hmm.
In my daily life, I don't often call myself a witch, although when I say I don't often, it's caveated by except on the internet. And that's where everyone knows me from, is the internet. But the internet has just made it simple to find people from a like-minded perspective in the right community.
Yeah.
So the word witch I use on the internet, but if you were to meet me out in the wild, I would say practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just like how I go. So I practice and I call myself, a left-handed path Irish folk witch. So I work left-hand path magic and I work Irish folk. So growing up, I was introduced to witchcraft through Irish folk Catholicism,
Mm-hmm.
and then later that morphed into what I do now because at some point the Catholicism fell off and paganism fell in, but a lot of what I was doing I retained, and then it changed over the years, and so that's all going on. But I make the distinction that I work left hand path magic because I do work left hand path magic, and I feel like that's a distinction between making sure a lot of people, when they hear things are Celtic based, they assume that it's like Druidry or Wiccan, and I really make that distinction. Like, no, it's not. I'm doing left hand path bullshit over here.
So just to enlighten some of our listeners who may not be familiar with left hand and right hand paths, what would you define as, obviously in your opinion, what would you define as being traditionally like left hand path the other?
I think it's a really messy question because it's going to be based on the person you're asking.
Yeah.
The
But so for
easiest
you
way,
then.
the easiest way to make the difference without getting too technical is that right hand path practitioners have, like, they're guided by specific ethics and morals that are usually set by a larger body, and They
Mm-hmm.
don't believe in hexing or cursing,
Mm-hmm.
whereas left-hand path practitioners tend to make all of their own decisions in regards to ethics and morals. They're not unified typically by super solid bodies, and they do hexing and cursing. Now, this is to say that's not the hard and fast definition, because there are
Yep.
unified bodies within both groups, but I tend to find that most people right hand path identify, they'll be like, I'm Wiccan, I'm this, and that's how they're identifying, and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll say caveats about morality or ethics that you wouldn't normally find on a left hand path practitioner.
Like, for example, we're talking like the law of return, or the rule of three, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That obviously a lot of Wiccan people. So it's funny that you say that, because it's like I was also brought up Catholic, and then I did a bit of soul searching, and then dabbled in various different belief systems. I initially started into witchcraft through Wicca, but then it's funny because it's like, then once I got deep into it, there were certain things that just didn't really resonate to me. So now I've kind of adopted this. I call myself an eclectic witch, and I practice what I call eclectic mysticism. So I kind of just take little bits of here and there and da da da, and kind of make my own system, just because it's, I don't really ascribe to one nor the other. Like, it's, I kind of just float wherever I feel like at the time. So I just found it interesting, because it's like, because I think another one of the terms that I've seen you use has been a hereditary witch. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Like, is that through
I
your lineage?
yeah. I think this term gets really confused by a lot of people, and
Mm.
really it was something that got picked out of something I had said once, and then it ended up on my bio for my book. And
Oh, really?
but yeah, but hereditary witchcraft doesn't mean that you have to come from lines and lines of old witches, and you're not the descendant of witches they didn't burn. It literally just means that whatever you're doing was taught to you by someone familial.
Hmm.
So in my perspective, you can be a hereditary witch, and it's that your grandmother or your mother taught you something, and that connection has stayed. How many people do we hear, they're like, oh yeah, like I have, like I see spirits, or I hear spirits, like my mom did too. Like, there's a hereditary link there.
Mm.
I think hereditary witch is a term that comes in and out of popularity, and more often than not, it's used as a way to gatekeep people. They'll be like, oh, you have to be a hereditary witch to do this or this or this, and it's like, you really don't. And how do you prove that anyways? Like,
Yeah.
you're just creating bullshit that doesn't need to be there. It's messy. But I think anyone can fall under the umbrella of hereditary if they've learned something from their practice, from someone that they grew up with as family, whether that family was, I'm going to be messy here and say blood or not, but blood or not, like, to me, hereditary doesn't have to be the mother that gave birth to you. If that wasn't your family,
Hmm.
um, I don't think that there's a blood quantifier for being a witch. So
Amen to that. I mean, not to go all Christian, but like, it's just, for me, amen in itself, I don't associate it with Christianity. It's just like a, yeah, hallelujah, or whatever else you want to throw out there. I'm just like, I live for that, because it's like, for me, my kind of introduction to anything supernatural was actually through my uncle, which is my mum's brother. My mum was like, she's a hardcore Gemini. Everything's logic and reason. There's no kind of spiritual nothing. Whereas my uncle, being a Pisces, is very intuitive and very much into the woo woo, and like, all things that science can't explain. So I guess he kind of introduced me into all that stuff. So even though he's not, like, he is by blood, but not direct blood. You know what I mean? So like,
mhm.
I totally agree with you on that one. And I think it's good that you. What I like about you and all the stuff that I've seen that you've done is like, you have an opinion, and you acknowledge that it's your opinion, and that's just what it is. And I'm very opinionated myself on the internet, especially. And it's like, when someone comes for my opinion, I'm like, what are you trying to prove here? Like, I'm not going to get into this with you. This is my opinion. You can't tell me I'm wrong. It's my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
but I have actually noticed that there's this almost, I find, see, because it, pulling back to a previous point that you made about the internet and how it's been so good in allowing people to connect, I've also found is it the adverse or inverse? I'm really bad at English. Is it the
You got it.
inverse? The inverse is also correct, in that, like, whilst it's been able to bring so many people together, I've also seen of late, it's also been a channel where people have been pulling each other apart, like by gatekeeping, as they call it, to like say, oh, but you're not a real witch because of this and this and this. And it's just, I don't know if you've noticed it, because I know you're very big on social media and stuff. Like, there's just this. there can often be this like double-edged sword with social media, like, because it's like,
It is, but I don't find it to be new, honestly.
mm,
I think just the vessel that it's happening for is new. The channels are new.
yep.
So we're really seeing it a lot with TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Replaced what was Witch Blur, Witch Tumblr, which was really toxic, which replaced chat message boards. Because I mean, I can remember like earlier mid 2000s chat rooms and like forums full and full of people tearing apart Silver Ravenwolf because she's a fluffy author, and Cunningham because he was a fluffy author, and whatever else. And it was like, okay, it's just the vehicle that people are using to be nasty has changed,
Mm.
and the content has changed, the way that we give our content has changed, but people have always been nasty, and the internet is just an anonymous place to be disgusting.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on so many fronts on that one. It's like I love to engage with witches, um, but sometimes I jokingly say to Vicky, like, we don't say it on air because I don't like bad list any particular platforms or particular groups, but sometimes I'll refer to them as the, instead of calling them the Witchcraft group, I'll call them the Bitchcraft group, because it's like, oh, just everyone has an opinion, and it's like, I mean, that being said, I'm this self-righteous witch that has a podcast, so I can express my opinion. So, like,
The podcast host on this podcast is too opinionated.
what's that? The podcast host?
Yeah, you're too opinionated. Like,
Yeah, right. It's like, how dare I have an opinion on my own podcast? It's like I don't know if you're a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, but I actually watch. My husband watches a lot of the Trixie and Katya show, and I love how they're like, because it's our video and not yours or something. Like they say it at the start of their clip every single time. Because it's ours and not yours. So it's like they could say whatever the hell they want to say. And I love it. Because it's like, I say that to Vicky all the time. Like, well, this is our podcast. If I don't like what you have to say, I'll just mute you or I'll edit it out.
yeah, well,
Joking.
the internet is tricky because a lot of people aren't, where this is getting, and why I say, like, this is my opinion. Personal gnosis plays a huge part in
Mm,
spirituality, and especially what we're doing. Everything is built on personal gnosis, right? We're not all following uniform liturgy. We don't have standard books and standard teachings and standard teachers, and we're not following, you know, some kind of guru or priest or whatever. So personal gnosis is how the vessel for us to communicate with each other. And the issue right now that we're seeing online and why people are getting so nasty is because they're basically touting their personal gnosis as verified communal gnosis. And it's like, okay, well, what you're saying isn't for everyone, it's for you. That's not a universal law, that's not a universal truth, that's just what you believe and what you do. And that just because you believe it doesn't make it true. It makes it true for you, and that's great, but it's not true for me. And so I always like to give the caveat, like, this is what I believe, this is what I think, and you're free to think something else, but here's what I think, and then I say my statement.
I love it. I love it though, because I think that's we need more of that, because like social media and like the ability that we can connect with people globally in an instant. I think it's so powerful if used correctly, and it's just such a shame that so many people just don't know how to do that. It's like oftentimes I'll be like on a post and then I'll comment something, and then when I just see it get catty, I'm like, unfollow post. I'm like, nah, I don't want to read any more of that because it just went. But anyway, on that note, changing lanes a little bit. This is what I love about your book, because you've written a book which I'm holding it up for those watching on YouTube. It's called Year of the Witch. So it's connecting with nature's seasons through intuitive magic. And what I love about your book is that you've kind of taken this approach of, because a lot of people, when they practice witchcraft, they instantly adopt the wheel of the year based on the traditional names given, well, in reality, what's given by the Wiccan belief system, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, but then you don't identify as Wiccan in the slightest, do you? No.
No.
So I guess, what was your inspiration for writing the book? Was it literally just that you wanted to write it based on your own experience, or?
My inspiration was, at the time in which I had thought about this book. I was getting a lot. I was a public figure. It's public figure, but I was a public figure at this point, on the internet, and I would get messages every holiday like, "What are you doing? How are you celebrating it? What should I do?" Yada yada yada. And I was like, "What makes you think I'm celebrating that harvest in South Florida? I'm not." But happy bread day. And so for me, it was really born out of like so many beginners coming to me, asking, what do I do? How can I do this? It doesn't feel right. Or adversely saying, I don't celebrate this holiday because I don't connect to it and it doesn't make sense. And the holiday that always gets brought up, Mabon, people hate it. And it's like, you can't hate it. It's whether you relate to it or not, it's one of those, it's a celestial day. Like, you can't
Yeah.
just ignore it. It's happening. So how do you connect to it? How do you take it out of the context of what Wicca turned it into and make it so that it works for you? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write a whole book on this because I bet I could. And so I did. And the book is really based on, and it's sometimes it confuses people how I wrote it. The first half of the book is teaching you how to be intuitive, because if you can't be intuitive, you can't make and use an intuitive wheel. So that addresses the first problem. What is intuition? How do you use it? How do you build it? How do you connect to foundations in earth? Let's assume you're building an earth-based practice because you're reading a nature-based book. Let's assume you want to build an earth-based practice. Here's how we do that. Now let's talk about the wheel. And now that you've learned all that, let's talk about the wheel. Does this still fit? Do you still identify with it? Yes or no? If you don't, here's what we're going to do last. We're going to build something that works for you. And so that was kind of like the whole flow and process and thinking, was that people can do whatever the fuck they want, and they can celebrate whatever holidays they want, and they can really just make their witchcraft their own. Why do we all have to celebrate holidays that don't fit? Why? And so that was
Exactly.
the guiding light for the book.
I love that, because it's something that I discussed with you off camera before we started recording, was how here in Australia we're hit with this constant barrier of, like, recently we had Halloween, and I went out and I decorated my house for Halloween, and a lot of my witch friends they were like, it's Beltane. I'm like, why can't I celebrate both? Like, for me, Halloween is a separate entity to Beltane being a festival of the season, because I live down here, like, you know what I mean? And also because for us, Beltane, like, I'm pretty sure the traditions, you're supposed to like jump over bonfires and all that kind of stuff and shepherd cattle through bonfires and whatever. That's actually in our fire restriction season. So we can't be doing no bonfires anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? So it doesn't work here the same way that it works in Europe or in North America. So we're always faced with that same thing of, Christmas. It's, well, Yule, Christmas, same, but different. For us, technically, it's going to be Litha, or the summer solstice. So, like, we were talking, actually, by the time this airs, we would just be the following episode is going to be about Litha/Yule and how we incorporate the two together. So it's something that Vicky and I do, where we try to incorporate both elements in the one, just to kind of honor the northern hemispherical calendar whilst also incorporating the seasonal changes down here. So I guess, did that come about because of your move from New England down to Florida, and with the fact that obviously in Florida you're not going to have like winter? Well, you
It
do, but it's
actually
not.
it didn't come from New England to Florida. It came from Florida to Montana.
Oh,
Because
really?
yes, when I moved from Florida, I was 13. I lived in Montana for 5 years, and I in Montana where I lived on the border town for the US and Canada. So literally outside my window every morning I would wake up and I could see the mountains outside of my window were in Canada. That's how I could walk to the border. I was that close. And
Wow.
so was experiencing, seasons that I'd never experienced, because where I lived in Montana, it started snowing in September. The snow melted off the ground, started melt, like it should have been completely melted by June. But I live near Glacier National Park, which Glacier National Park is named after its glaciers. There was glaciers all year round where I was. And how do you connect to that? Because at the time I was identifying as pagan, by that point in my life. So how do you do that? How do you connect with this? And I talk about it a lot, and I talked about it a little bit for a class that I taught recently. I work really heavily with land spirits, and a lot of people view land spirits as like a secondary or even tertiary spirit or entity to work with. However, a lot of my practice has always been based with land and land spirits. So I have kind of like blended that really heavily into my book, and talked about that a bit. And that was a really big basis for my own personal practice. And, you know, I wrote the book very conversationally because
Yeah.
my thinking was, if you've never spoken to a lot of people are solitary and they're coming into witchcraft from the internet. And if you've never spoken to another witch before, you're missing a connection, because I feel like we learn our most when we can ask questions to a real person that can say, like, this was my perspective, this is what I did, here's how I learned it. As like, people are missing that link right now, right? There's a million wheel books that have been done, there's a million academic wheel books that have been done, but no one's had a conversation, quite frankly, about how they're applying it. And I was like, I'm going to tell people how I apply these concepts, how I connect to the earth, how I do all that, and, you know, we'll just take it from there. And you know, people have responded really well. I had, you know, I had a review on Amazon that said it was the most overrated book on social media, so people are taking it really well. Yeah, it was one
What?
reviewer. Yeah, one reviewer said that, because like they're all really good reviews, and then I saw that one review, I was like, this goes on a shirt, this is a shirt, like, so you know, but I think, you know, a lot of people are really connecting to it because they don't have someone to just talk to. And I love that it has an audiobook, because if you have, there's a service on the internet called Scribed, it's $9 a month. This is not a promotion, I don't get anything for saying this. There's a service on the internet called Scribed. They have the full Llewellyn and Weiser catalogs, but they also have audiobooks. It's unlimited books and audiobooks for $9 a month. You can get occult books, you cannot beat it. They have the audiobook version of my book, and so a lot of people have listened to it and been like, I loved that I could hear this on audio, it sounds like you're talking to me, like, I really love this, thank you so much. So, you know, it's been a fun journey.
And is it you actually the person doing the audio, or someone else is reading your book for you?
Someone else read it, but you know
Oh.
what, the girl that read it, she has read some of the romance novels that I read, because sometimes I listen to them on audiobook and I recognized her voice. So
I love that it's like full circle, like, oh, I listened to that voice and now she's reading my book. This is cool.
yeah.
Did you have that many fangirl moments? When you made that
Okay, yeah,
connection?
I had that fangirl moment when my book was accepted. When I pitched it to, I only pitched it to one company. I pitched it to one publisher. It was Weiser. The first occult book I ever bought for myself was a Weiser title. And I said to myself, if I ever write a book, I'm doing it with Weiser. If they don't take it, I'm not doing it. I pitched them one time for this book and they accepted it. And that was like my I ran around, I literally ran around my house screaming, oh my God, they accepted my book. So
I
that
love
was,
it. Because
yeah.
it literally only just came out, right? For those that are watching.
Yeah, it came
haven't
out
been following.
November 1st.
Yeah. So just in a nutshell, where can people buy the book? We're obviously still going to talk about it a little bit more, but just in a nutshell, where are the major stockists for your book?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can buy it directly through me. If you like to shop small and you're in the North America, if you're in the United States, you can buy it through New Moon Books, who I tag a lot. They're a small store, but they have tons of copies, and I work for them, so it's signed. There's Book Depository. I know if you're in France, a French publisher just picked up the rights. It will be printed in French soon. So that's
Wow.
Horizon, yes.
That would be so cool. Like, just
Yeah.
seeing your own work being translated into another language, that would be like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an author, but I would perceive that to be like the biggest, like, I don't know. Like, it'd just be like such a compliment to go, oh, my book is that popular that they've translated it to another language.
They translated it to another language with less than being released for less than a month. I was so stunned. I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, I felt so honored. Yeah, I was I've been blown away by the response to this book, and people loving it, and it's just been very humbling to me. So but it's pretty much available wherever. And like I said, it's on Scribed as well. So if you want it digitally and you just want a membership so that you could read all of the Weiser books and all of the Llewellyn books, Scribed as well.
I think it's awesome. And there's a particular section of this book that I actually heard you talk about this in when I went to the Witches Sabbath event recently. But if like, I don't want to give too much away of the book itself, but there's one particular one I wanted to touch on, which is shepherding the land and the concept behind that. Did you want to give our listeners / viewers a little bit of insight into what you mean by shepherding the land? Terribly sorry about that, guys. Apparently the communication gods are not on our side today. So we just had a little bit of technical difficulties. So what I was asking about your book is, without giving too much away, because I obviously want people to go out and buy it and read it because I think it's amazing. But I wanted to talk about the concept of shepherding the land. and what that entails. So do you mind enlightening us a little bit into that?
Of course. So I view my practice very much through animism. So like no one really calls himself an animist, but like that's not feeling like I'm an animistic witch. Like that doesn't happen. But
I feel like I want to, now that you said no one does, I feel like I want to prove you right. Just say, I'm an animist.
I'm
No, I'm
an
just kidding.
animist. Yeah, but I mean, I am, and I believe that many things contain spirit, hold spirit, our vessels for spirit, and I work really heavily with the land. So shepherding the land was somewhat of a biblical reference, actually, but it really came down to, if we are earth-based pagan, if you're this, the assumption is that you are an earth-based pagan. If you are not an earth-based pagan, this chapter maybe doesn't apply as much, but if you are an earth-based pagan, how are we shepherding and watching after and caring for the earth and its spirits and everything that is living here? I believe that it is our duty to do so and to take care of it. And I kind of laid into that and how you might shepherd the earth. And the majority of pollution and emissions and all that stuff, it's coming from corporations, right? We know that it is, but us as witches, we have the choice where we spend our money for the most part. We have the choice to support greener companies, to go out of our way and save things, recycle things. And recycle, I don't just mean throw it in the recycle bin, but like reusing Tupperware, reusing jars, reusing all that stuff. Those are things. And I think a lot of it can get really messy in like the green space, because people will be like, oh, you need to do this, and you need to make these swaps, and you need to do this and that. And I think being green can happen at like very smaller levels, more accessible levels, because I feel like a lot of times the green package is very thinly veiled classism. And if you're a witch, if you're a folk witch, especially like I am, you're using what you got, using what you got around you. So it's very almost intuitive practice. And for me, one of the biggest, and I talk about it a bunch. I talk about it a bunch, but I have talked about it a bunch recently, is one of the ways that I work with like land spirits around here. If I'm doing like a devotionary act, I actually like go pick up trash, like from the beach or from like around my complex or whatever, like places where people have thrown garbage. I will pick it up, I'll toss it out. And whatever else I'm doing, I do recycle very heavily. I drive over to my friend's house because we live in the same complex. I'm like, just put all your recycling in a pile, I'll come by and pick it up once a week. So like I go out of my way to recycle, because we don't recycle in my city. There's like these big, I live right next to a fire station. I'm so sorry. There's these big there's these big bins in my complex, but they don't pick it up, so you have to like take them over. And it is what it is. So I think shepherding the land is such an important part of paganism, because how can we work with something that we don't respect? How can we expect it to want to work with us if we're not doing our part to take care of it, respect it as well?
I really love that, because I was actually talking about that with Vicky when we were preparing for this interview, and we were saying it's almost like a moral responsibility of witches, because we do say that our practices are based on the earth, and they're based on the land, and they're based on like nature. And even if we're not the culprits for doing the littering or whatever else, if we're also turning a blind eye to it, then almost I feel that it's almost our moral responsibility to take an active part in cleaning up the mess. Just because, like, I mean, if someone helps me out, I'm more inclined to help them out, right? So if you want the help of Mother Earth or whatever, then you should do your part to help it, so that it helps you. Does that make sense? So like,
That's exactly how I feel.
like
I think it's not like a moral responsibility of like, oh, do this so that this happens for you. It's giving to give,
give to
right?
give. Yeah, that's what I meant, though. It probably came out wrong. But like I meant it from the inverse of, like, you can't expect Mother Nature to want to help you out if you're not helping it out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that's a bit of a cop out in my mind. Sorry about that loud noise. That's my cat trying to break into the room. She does this every episode. It's like, the door's closed, I hear you talking, I need to come in there. Anyway, ignore that. So another thing that I wanted to kind of touch on with oh, now I've lost my train of thought. My cat knocked it out of my head. You kind of just mentioned it then about being a folk witch and being able to use what's around you. One of the
Mhm.
things that I love that I see a lot on your Instagram is you talk about the McCormick's Coven.
I do. I love. Okay, so McCormick really, oh, subtweet to McCormick. They do not acknowledge that I exist, and I know they've seen it because I tag them so often. And it's gotten to the point where like my followers will tag me when they're getting like targeted McCormick ads, and I'm like, I know you see me because who's tagging McCormick? And okay, like McCormick on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter. McCormick on Twitter responds to every single tweet that they're tagged in except mine. So I know they're seeing them. Um,
Wow.
I think they just don't want to be associated with our community, which only makes me want to do it more, to be honest. Um, that's the Aries in me. So yeah, the McCormick Coven is a joke, but it's not a joke in that um, people get really weird about their tools and spending money on tools and like building an altar, and you need to have this and you need to have that, and you know, okay, yeah, that's like fun to have all those things, but if I'm being real, I'm pulling stuff out of my cabinet. I'm pulling shit out of my cabinet to use, and I don't care if it came from a witch store or if it came from my backyard or if it came from the spice section of the supermarket. I'm going to use what I have on hand because that's what makes sense for me. That's what makes sense for my budget. That's what makes sense for my magic. The magic and witchcraft is most effective when it's most genuine, and when it's most
Yeah.
genuine is when you're using what makes sense to you. So I'm not going to go out, and aside from all the moral ethical things I have against crystals, I'm very vocal on my stance against crystals. I'm not going to use a spell that says, oh, use this crystal, because one, I don't connect with crystals, two, I have an ethical aversion to crystals, but three, it doesn't make sense for my practice. I don't have it on hand. I'd have to go buy it. And what sense does that make? If I want to do a spell, it's probably because I need to do it right then. It's not that I need to do it in like 2 days from now when I can go out and get the crystal and come back. Like, so I'm going to use what I have on hand that makes sense for the spell. And the not to say like I think that there's some substitutions that you can't actually make, but I find that magic is the most genuine when you're just using what you got.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. So there's actually we were talking to a recent guest as well that she's writing a book that's based on the like herbs that are around that most people in Australia would class as weeds. She's like, but you don't realize that they actually do have magical purposes and they're related to other herbs and plants that you can use for magical purposes that people just don't realize because they're not familiar with the Latin terms or whatever. They don't realize what they have in their own backyard and they're going out and spending all this top dollar on like expensive imports from overseas that we don't grow here. But now I don't actually have McCormick's. I don't know even if I probably should have done my fact checking if we even have McCormick's in Australia, but I know I have seen it. But I've got Master Foods here. This is a mixed herbs one, which it's very similar to the one that you were talking about on the video that I watched of you. That you see the what's in the ingredients in the
Italian, it's
Italian
the
one?
Italian seasoning. I I love Italian seasoning from Money Magic. To be honest, I love it.
Yeah. And what's the usual concoction that's in Italian? Do you remember? Off the top of your
Italian is like basil, oregano, thyme. Did I say rosemary? Marjoram. That's usually kind
So
of what's in.
well, this one has literally got thyme, rosemary, marjoram, basil, oregano, and sage. So it's like almost
Yes,
the
that's
same
exactly
thing. Oh,
that's
sage.
exactly
So
in
this
it.
is
Yes.
the one. So I'm like, and this has been sitting in my cupboard for so long, and we don't use it enough because like I put like the tiniest little sprinkle in my bolognese sauce every now and again. But other than that, I don't really use it. I'm like, who knew that I had this gold mine of magic spell casting sitting right in my cupboard this entire time that and this like cost nothing. Like
Costs
literally
nothing. And
nothing.
like think about those ingredients broken down separately.
Oh
Like there's
yeah.
a lot of magical potential there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a one-stop shop. And so there's a section in my book, my book. There's a section in my book in chapter 5. Chapter 5 is called At the Gates of Witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually an alliteration to gatekeeping witchcraft. It's also a nod to the Five of Tarots. It's the hottest take in the book. The whole chapter is a hot take. But in there, I talk about budget witchcraft. And the reason why this chapter was written, here's the backstory. So if you're listening to this podcast, it's super special because not everyone knows that this is the
Are we
truth
getting
behind
the
this
inside
chapter.
scoop?
The inside scoop on this chapter. I wrote this chapter because at the time I had written an Instagram TV video. I had made one, and it was budget witchcraft tips. It's still on my page. You can still find it. I did take down this comment because I didn't want the person getting harassed, but I made a budget witchcraft tip video and I used Italian seasoning in the video. And they were like, this is plastic witchcraft. This is fake. You can't do this. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, bet. And so it was written into the book. Budget witchcraft was written into the book. And so McCormick Coven has been a thing for a very long time. It was just recently given its name. But I do think that, you can find magic wherever you are. And I do talk a lot in my book. Well, a lot. I do talk at one point in my book about plants and how to classify them for magical purposes, because I feel like people buy correspondence books and then, but they still don't know how to do it. They don't know how to break down correspondences.
Yeah.
So I have a chapter where I teach people my technique for breaking down correspondences for plants, even plants that don't have a known magical correspondence. So I broke down 3 plants. I broke down sponge gourds, cannabis, and a flower. I forget, dragon something. So those were the plants that I chose to break down and teach the technique, because I explained the technique in detail, but it's like easier to just see it kind of happen a few times and you're like, oh, okay, I get it, because those are all very different plants, cannabis having very well known associations. But I do get a lot of questions, can I use this magically, and I don't know why you would want to, but okay, maybe. So and there's there's canna witches, but like these people aren't smoking it, they're wanting to use it in witchcraft, and it's like, okay, I guess. So we got that going on. And then I was like, okay, sponge gourds, like no one's using this, but you could. And then like random flowers that I was like, yeah, we're just gonna throw this in here and teach the technique. So that was like, that also is like a fun nod to do in my book. So if you're working in earth-based practice, you might as well know how to do it.
Well, I think that's a good thing though, because like so many people think like, oh, I can't do this spell because I don't have these specific things. It's like, but you don't need to always have like, just because one author or one producer of something has said you need those things. Like this is, I think, the difference between being a book witch and being an actual witch is an actual witch will go out there and see what's available to them or find a substitute that works for them, like rather than, because a lot of the times here in Australia we can't get most of the herbs that are in all of the books that were written in the Northern Hemisphere, because we don't have the climate, we don't have the like agriculture, like it's just not available here. And like I'm not the type of person that wants to spend like $30 US plus postage to like import some exotic herb from the States just because I have to have it. Like I love just being able to find an alternative that's in my own backyard. And like, but like that's what I love is that this McCormick's Coven thing, I would never have even thought. Like I'm guilty of going to the cutesy little, and I'm not saying don't support your local cutesy little witchy store, but I'm guilty of going there and spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these magical herbs, and then literally looking at them in my jars, like because I went out and grabbed, because I've got a lot of these fancy jars with all my witch herbs in them, and I looked at the actual substance, and I looked at my, after I started watching you on social media, I'm like, I looked at what's in my spice jars and I looked at what's in my herb jars. I'm like, it's the same bloody thing. But I paid like 5 times the amount for this one than I did for this one, or more. Some of them like for a little tiny little bag, I paid like some exuberant amount of money. And I'm like, I could have just gone to my local grocery store. Idiot.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think that I agree with you that it's almost a way of like, by someone turning their nose up at that practice, I think it's almost a form of, I don't know, passive elitism. Like, oh, you got yours from a supermarket, that's not good enough. Oh, excuse you, it's the same bloody herb, it does the same bloody thing. Shame on you.
And I love making it as accessible as I can.
Yeah.
Craft, that's like a big part of my platform. It always has been the heart of my platform is making things accessible to people where people don't want it to be accessible. And that's a big part of the book. Is the book was written to be climate based instead of season based, because
Yep.
we don't all have those seasons. Like, I live in Florida, we don't have seasons. And I write about it in the book too. I was like, in Florida we have, especially where I am, we have 2 seasons, and they're actually wet and dry. We
Mm.
have a summer temperate climate all year round, and our seasons are broken down into wet and dry, scientifically. So for me, what am I doing with a winter holiday? What am I doing with all this? So it's like making everything accessible based on climate, based on what you have. And you know what you have? A supermarket, most likely. And that supermarket most likely has herbs that you can use, and they're cheap. And then you can use them for cooking too if you needed to, like.
Yeah, it's like, well, why not? You can do them as both, and like it's part of being a kitchen witch as well. Like you don't always have to have like this concoction spell. Like I'm the type of person that sometimes when I want to work some magic, especially if I'm doing something to do with my own personal growth or whatever, I'm guilty of putting those herbs into my cooking, so I'm consuming them as a means of absorbing the magical intent behind them. Some people might frown upon that practice as well, but I'm like, it works for me. If I'm trying to manifest something, I like consume it into my body, and then it's like, ooh, it worked, yay! And plus, it tasted good too at the same time. Now, I'm going to go out on a completely different tangent, and because Vicky's not here, I could do what I want. So she can't reel me in and keep me on focus because I have my new Vicky right now.
Okay.
I wanted to bring up this.
Yes.
Magic the Gathering. Now, I don't even know if Vicky's into Magic the Gathering. Have I ever
We need to find
discussed it with
out.
her? I think we need to find out whether she has ever played Magic the Gathering, because I know that something that Vicky and I both share is that we're not even closeted nerds. We're both nerds. Like, because we're both book nerds, but we share a love of things like Assassin's Creed. I don't know if you're a gamer.
I'm loosely, I don't play Assassin's Creed. Typically, I play a lot of Animal Crossing.
But so
So
we've got that kind of thing in common, Vicky and I. But like, I've got this little, like, Magic the Gathering is my secret little, what do you call it? Guilty pleasure. I just
yeah,
don't have enough people to play it with. But like, so how did you get into Magic?
quarantine. So one of my friends is like he's like competitive EDH, magic. And then one of my other friends got into it last year because of him. So we have game night once a week at my house. We've always had game night. COVID kind of like made that stop for a while,
Yeah.
but so we would come over to my house and play whatever. Like, we had board games and card games and video games and like Smash, and all these things that we were doing. But they would always bring magic, and I was like, nerds, I'm not learning that. And I got so lonely and bored during quarantine that I was like, please teach me how to play it. Um,
One
so
of us. One of us.
yes, exactly. So quarantine is what spurred magic for me, but it's so fun. I love it. There's a new, we're going to a new plane, with it coming up in the spring, winter, spring, January or February or whatever. I don't know what my friends was explaining to me. I don't know its name, but it's all based on Norse mythology, and it's going to be
Oh.
such a fun plane. Yeah, so it's new. It's going to have Vikings and all this other cool stuff. There's going to be dark elves, which are going to be green black.
We're talking my
And
language now. I love a bit of a green black combo.
yes, it's going to be so fun. And so one of my friends was like, because he's asking me, because Magic the Gathering does build a lot around mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So he's asking, mythology about Norse mythology. And I was like, oh, okay, well, like read, read these books, read the Poetic Edda, and whatever else. And I was like, try these first. If you still have questions, come see me, and I'll step you through Norse mythology to the best of my understanding. Not that great at it, but I know the basics. And it's going to be fun. So magic is so fun. There's so many ways you can take it. And I think as a witch, and I've done it on Twitter, is like I pull tarot cards with their magic cards. I think there's so many ways that you can use them.
Really?
Yeah, you can use any kind of card as divination. I have a friend that does it with Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
You like what? I'm like you've just blown my mind. I have never thought because they've been sitting on my shelf for so long because I bought them a while back. Like I used to buy, I had them as a kid, but then I got rid of them all when I was growing up because I thought I'm too old for magic. And then I bought them again when I started working for a tech company because there's a whole lot of geeks there. And like, but since I left that company, they've been sitting on my shelf. I'm like, what am I going to do with them? I literally like these boxes is like maybe it's probably like a quarter of what I have. Yeah, because I've just got like boxes and boxes and boxes that are all up on my shelf, and they've just been sitting there collecting dust. And I'm like, what am I going to do with them? Like, I would never have thought to do divination with magic cards.
I do it. I do it. It's
That is
you think outside
cool.
of the box, right? So instead of tarot, you're putting yourself into oracle world, right?
Yeah.
And so you require a little bit of lore, you require a little bit of technical knowledge because you need to know kind of the flavor. Like what is the flavor of white? What is the flavor of green? What is,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to know those flavors. But once you pull out a card and you're like, whatever my question is, and you pull out whatever I call a typhoid rat 1/1 with death touch, you're like, oh god, like this is not what I needed in my day today. I did not need death touch in my day.
How are we feeling if I was to just randomly shuffle these and draw a card and see what it
Draw,
comes up with?
do it. For those listening, we're gonna shuffle a magic
Okay,
card now.
shuffling some magic cards. Like, oh, actually, I'll get a decent chunk of them because I don't want to. Because I don't know if these are in any particular order. Let me just see.
So for those who are listening and don't know, I can't explain it that well because like I'm a beginner myself still, but I'm just going to give like a brief overview. There's a few colors in magic. They're blue, black, red, green, and white. Each of those colors has kind of like its own thing that it's really, really good at. Green has big stompy boy creatures, and it's based like it's forest based.
Mm-hmm.
White is kind of the jack of all trades. It can do pretty much everything, but it's not a master at any of those things. It's got a lot of soldiers, a lot of angels. It's called plains. Red color it's very aggressive. It also has big stompy boys, but it's really good at getting cards out fast. And they're called like the land cards are called mountains. That's where you're seeing like goblins and demons and things like that. Then we have the black cards, which are called swamp. Those are the lands. And those have like zombies in them. They're good at killing things. They're good at getting things out of your graveyard or going to the graveyard or stuff of that nature. Is that blue? Blue is islands. So those cards are big brain. I'm not that big brain. But those are the big brain cards, and they do a lot of things that I'm not very good at yet. They care about like artifacts, and those are called islands. So there's a whole bunch of things within the blue cards. Like they can do a whole lot of things, but like really cool is like there's merfolk in there that I've been like into lately. So that's like a quick synopsis of the colors and what they do.
Yeah, so I actually, when I went out and bought these ones, I bought the Ixalan decks that when they came out, and that was the kind of ones that I was buying. And then it's funny because then, like you, when you go through phases of interest, like when I was very much I was playing Assassin's Creed Origins, which is based in Egypt, and I was like, I actually started Googling the Amonkhet plane or whatever. And I was like, so gonna buy them. I'm like, oh wait, I don't even use the cards I have now. Why am I buying more magic cards? I'm like, but they have Egyptian mythology on them and they're really cool. And yeah, anyway. So
They have a
I've
whole
just
game.
yeah, so I've just shuffled these cards. I have no idea. Like I literally just shuffled them. So I'm just gonna think of a question. I think you know what? I'm just gonna keep it open. I'm gonna ask just the universe for some general guidance of what I need to know for the next week. What am I going to be faced with, or what do I need to know for the next week? What guidance can the universe give me? I would keep it nice and easy, open-ended, and I'm going to take the top card. Ooh, So I got a Duskborn Sky Marcher. It's a vampire cleric creature. Hang on,
So
let's see if I
it
can get that to
is
zoom.
that so it's a white card 1/1 with flying. So for 1 mana, you can tap it, and a target attacking vampire gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. And then it's got a little text that says, "The hour of dusk is come."
So what would you say? What's your synopsis on this one? Like,
That's
that's
my
actually a foil one too. That's kind of cool.
that's
It's got
cool.
that reflective surface on the
Yeah.
picture. Yeah.
I think that's a good card that things are better with friends. It's a good time to be supportive of our friends,
Mm-hmm.
because what we're dealing with there is that tapped mana ability of that. When you tap that and you pay the mana cost, you can +1/+1 other creatures, right? So we're really dealing there with being a good support for our friends. A situation may pop up where they need us more than we need them, and that's a good time for us to give them a shoulder or to help them out. It's also, that creature, it's a 1/1, so it's a baby, it's a minor influence of something that's going to be happening in our lives. So might not be some big event that a friend is doing, but maybe a friend's gonna be like, "Hey, would you come out for coffee with me?" And to you might be like, like I don't really feel like, but maybe they really need that, and that's a time for us to really be supportive of our friends.
Wow. Do you know that what you just said totally relates right now? You just like blow my money. I'm like, I never would have thought to use this for oracle cards, and then the way that you just analyze this, I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense because I'm literally hanging out with one of my friends later this evening, and we have never hung out just one on one before. It's normally in a group environment, and we just spontaneously decided. She's like, "Hey, you want to come over for dinner?" I'm like, yeah, sure. Like we've never done that, so this is kind of like when you just said that, I'm like, whoa, like that just blew my mind. Yeah, well, thank you for doing that kind of little fun, random thing. All of our listeners get to be like, are they speaking another language now? Then there's magic cards, there's mana, there's all of these things I need to learn now. Guys, this is just a card game. It's a card
It's just a
game.
card game. It's really fun. You'll spend all of your allowance on it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. You really will.
you will, but you know what though? I am very as a tarot reader, because I do read tarot professionally. I do tarot readings, but then I also sometimes I'm fun and I like to read Cards Against Humanity as my tarot cards. So for me, adding in magic was just a natural progression of like, I can do this.
That is so cool. Like, that's another thing that I've got because I've got like I'm one of those guys that when I buy something, I have to buy the whole thing. So I've got like the bigger, blacker box, you know, that extension pack, and I have all the little mini extension packs that I put in it. Admittedly, my husband's like, we're never going to play enough to warrant having all the expansion packs. I'm like, it's okay. I've got them all and I like them all. Because I'm like you, I like to play games and like we've got a lot of board games. And the intention was to play them so that we don't spend as much money going out and doing things where you have to pay money. But the amount of money I spent on those board games and card games, I'm like, I don't know what's worse.
Magic is not the game to get into if you're on a super
No,
tight budget, because when I got
no.
into it I was like, I'm buying one deck, because I play Commander. So there's like different formats when you're playing
Yeah.
with your friends. I play Commander, which is a 100 card deck. And I was like, I'm just gonna buy the deck, that's it, I'm not buying anymore. I'm gonna learn on the one deck so I can take part in game night. That's it, right? So then I bought the one deck and I was like, fuck, I'm good at this game. So yeah, I like big Aries energy. Like, I have to beat my friends, and one of my friends likes to play green, and I'm sorry, but green just is no match for my combinations, because I like to play red black, and one of my other friends plays blue black. And like, so if we're if we're in a round, because we all play like kind of black as a sub color, he plays green black, I play red black, the other plays blue black. Blue black and red black are going to take down green black in a heartbeat. Like, you do not
Like,
stand a chance.
I love this conversation. It's so like geeking me out because it's like I totally understand exactly what you're talking about. Some of my listeners are like, they've lost me. It's okay, guys. Like it's okay. Because it's like not just aside from playing it as a game, like I just love all the imagery and I love that they've drawn like is the artists and the people who create the decks have done a lot of research, you
Yeah.
pulling on mythology and stuff like that. And the imagery is just amazing. Like in actual fact, this is going off on a tangent, but as Vicky would always cut in with, she would say, "We love a good tangent. It's true. Guilty as charged." So one of my guides that I speak to on a regular basis has presented herself in a manner that, as soon as I saw it, I straight away thought of Nissa from Magic: The Gathering. That's how she looks to me. And so one of my friends was like, "But like, is that just because you're obsessed with this card game?" I said, "Well, no, it's, I believe that spirit will always present itself in a way that resonates with the person that they're presenting to. Because I've had a previous guy that presented himself in a way that like scared the bejesus out of me. And then it wasn't until like later I'm like, oh, okay, you're someone I can trust. Okay, when the first time I saw this guy, he was like massive and whatever. Anyway, so one of my main guides looks like Nissa. So if you've played Magic: The Gathering, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll see if I can get a picture. I'll put it in the comments of this video and the thing when I post it. But that's what she looks like to me. And so it's kind of like, you know, because our guides are obviously watching us throughout the day, so they'll always pull on references that resonate with us as well, which I think is super cool and cute. But yeah, now, this has been fun. Like, I know that it's just taken a massive weird tangent with you, but like, I love that you just
I think it's fun to a lot of people put witches in boxes and like you're just a witch, like this is what you are. And you know, yes, I'm a witch, yes, I'm an author, but I'm a person with a personality and I have interests. And I think people don't talk about it enough, but you have to have mundane interests and hobbies and things that give you passion outside of magic, or you're like outside of witchcraft. um, or you're going to burn out in witchcraft. You're going to burn out your spirituality. You need to have something else, something that's not related, that gives you joy, that gives you pleasure. And we don't see enough of that talk on social media. We see people like read, do your work, do your shadow work, do this, do that. And I was like, yeah, okay, there's a time and place for that. And there's a time and place for me to just relax with a romance novel, with a Netflix show, with Magic: The Gathering, with whatever you're doing. There's a time and place to do that as well. And it's all part of the journey. We have to give ourselves a break.
So is romance novels your guilty pleasure?
Oh, it's my outward. I mean, I talk about this on Twitter all the time. Like, this is not guilty. I do this 100% of the time. I've been reading these books for like maybe like 10 or 15 years. At my shelves, I have a whole bookshelf dedicated to these books. Like, this is what I do.
Wow.
I honestly, honest to God, have more romance novels on my shelf than I do witchcraft books, and I have a whole bookshelf of witchcraft books.
So we've actually named the front room of our house the library. One, because it sounds bougie to say I'm just going to the library when I'm going to the front room, right? Says the guy who only drinks espressos. But we call it the library. It's like, I'm just gonna take this call to the library. Like, it sounds all poshy and whatever, but it's because I literally went to IKEA, and people think that this bookshelf that we've got in the front room, it takes up an entire wall, and they think that it was like built into the house, but it's not. There was just this little alcove, like one of the, like kind of the wall dents in, and I just filled that little nook with wall to wall, floor to ceiling bookshelf. And then I've like decked it, and it's all white, and the wall is white, so it looks like it's built in, but I've just like decked it all out, and I've put all my occult books up on the top shelf, because it's like the eye line looks there, it doesn't look up. No one looks at the top shelf, so that's like they're my books.
I had that issue with, like, I had all of my books downstairs, but they were taking up a lot of space, and we were having guests over a lot that were like going through my shelves, and I was like, you know what, I was like, you know, I'm just going to move these. So I had gotten to the point where I had stacks and stacks and stacks of books all over my house, because I read a lot. I go through almost a book a day. And that's not always to say they're all witchcraft books. Like I said, I do read fiction, so it's really easy to fly through a fiction book. But I try to read 2 witchcraft related titles a week. And I had stacks all over my house, right? So I was like, oh, you know, I'm gonna go to IKEA and get a bookshelf and whatever. So I went to IKEA, I got a new bookshelf. The only place that we had availability in our house was my bedroom. So I set up a whole new shelf. I took all of the witchcraft books from downstairs, all of the ones that were stacked in piles, put them on the shelf. The shelf was full, and I had to overflow into another bookshelf. And I was like, oh God. Wow. So I have 2 bookshelves in my room full of occult titles, and then my fiction books and my history books are downstairs. So that's like the biggest breakdown. I feel like everyone should ask witches, what's in your library? What is contained in your library? My library is history books, occult books, and romance books. That's my library.
So mine, seeing as we're going there, mine is a lot of like self-help psychology because I'm a life coach outside of being a witch. There's a lot of health and fitness because I also work in the fitness industry. Then I have a lot of travel and language because I'm obsessed with like languages. And then fantasy fiction. I love a good fantasy fiction. Especially, oh, actually, are you into Eastern mythology? As in
Yeah,
like Chinese.
I'm into everything.
Okay, I'm going to recommend a book for you just because if you do like to read, if you read the first one, I think you can get it on Kindle or like an e-reader as well. Like it's by an Australian author. Her name is Kylie Chan, so Kylie, and surname Chan, Chan, and it's called White Tiger. So it's actually there's 9 books in the whole series, but
Yes, we love a thick series.
yeah, and the books are like thick. What you'll love about it, I don't want to give too much away, but if you read the blurb of White Tiger, I think you're gonna like it. I personally love it. I've read it multiple times, and I've even met Kylie Channing at a book signing, and I was just like, "Oh my god, sign my book, please!" And then they even came out with a graphic novel that ties into the storyline of the whole series, which was written with a graphic novelist. Um, and without giving too much away, let's just say that it starts off in Chinese mythology, but the main character is an Australian girl. But then it ties into Western mythology, specifically Celtic.
Okay,
And
this
so
is what it says. This is the description of the book. A young woman accepts a position as nanny to the young daughter of a handsome, wealthy, and mysterious Chinese businessman, only to discover her new employer is really a god, and every foul demon in creation is out to destroy him. With a premise like that, fantasy aficionados and die-hard action lovers alike will no doubt be expecting something exceptional. And Australian author Kylie Chan delivers big time. White Tiger is the first book in Chan's breathtaking trilogy that ingeniously blends magic, martial arts, and urban fantasy with a healthy dollop of paranormal romance thrown in to sweeten the pot. Fans of Hong Kong kung fu movies and the novels of Lilith St. Croix, Liz Williams, Karen Chance, Devin Monk, and something Andrews will flip over White Tiger.
I think you'll
That
like it because you like
yeah,
romance. It's got some romance thrown in. It's got a bit of magic. It's got a bit of like demons and celestials. It's got a little bit of Celtic folklore. But it's like it says it's in a trilogy, but there's actually 3 trilogies that make up the whole 9 books. But yeah, I would say if you get a chance, give that one a read, and I'd be keen to hear what your thoughts are down the track.
I'm gonna read it.
You're gonna read it? Woohoo!
I'm
Yay!
gonna read it. Yeah, I'm just finishing up a series right now, and yeah, and then I'm gonna
I
read
was gonna say,
that.
see,
I've got
if we lived in the same country, I'd literally just lend you mine. But like, we obviously shipping it to Florida might be a little bit pricey
yeah,
just to lend it to you.
just ship it over to Florida. Yeah, I'm gonna see if it's on. I bet it is on Scribed. Um, everything is on Scribed. I honestly, it's the best $9 I spend a month. Oh, they got the audiobook on Scribed.
Woohoo! Awesome. So you're more of an audio than a book reader, or do you do both?
I do both, but when I'm at work, I listen to audiobooks because I have a very boring job, so I'll plug in an audiobook.
Oh, nice, nice. Anyways, I'm conscious of what time it is over in Florida. I feel like I could talk to you like all day. I literally feel like we're just having a chat over like some random shit.
We are. It's okay though. It's been a super fun interview. Like I told you, it does. Time is not an issue to me, but for the sake of a podcast, it is an issue
Yeah,
because like no
because
one wants
not
to
everyone wants to
our
listen.
podcast.
Yeah, right.
So yes, but thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you very much for coming on the show again. So, just guys, for those that are listening, please go out and purchase The Year of the Witch by Temperance Alden. So, it's an amazing book. You're not going to regret it. Ignore the person who said that on Amazon. They don't know what they're talking about. I think they must have just had a bad day that day because I say poo on you for saying that. Anyway, or maybe kudos to you for making such an amazing new T-shirt that Temperance is going to wear around town.
A new T-shirt, a new canvas bag, put it on a bookmark. I'm gonna market myself that way. Next book, I'm telling you, it's gonna be the second most overrated book on social media.
Oh my god, you could even call it that. You could call your next book the most overrated book on social media, or the most overrated witchcraft book on social media.
Yes. You know how much it will sell? Like,
I actually
uh,
think it would, from a marketing perspective, like calling it the most overrated book on social media would actually make it sell more, I reckon.
yeah. That's just like me being salty, but like not really salty, but like, if you're gonna tell me that I'm overrated, like people don't realize. I think some people don't realize that like I really make fun of some of like the things that are said about me negatively.
Yeah.
And so for probably a year and a half, someone had commented on one of my posts like, "Who the fuck are you? You're not a god." This is what they said to me: "You're not a god politician, or you're not a high priestess, politician, or god." And I was like, bet. I put it in my bios for years. It only came out because of the book. I almost included it on the book back, but it's not. And I think it might be on my Amazon author bio too, because it was still part of my bio at the
What
time.
saying I'm not a high priestess, I'm not a
God
politician,
or
I'm not a god.
politician. Yeah.
Oh my god, see, I love that because like being a coach, like I always say, like I always try to take the things that others see as my flaws and then kind of flipping it back around on them kind of thing. Like I love that about you. I feel like that's an Aries thing though, for you to do that.
It is, and I feel like my three are spicy because I'm an Aries sun, Sagittarius moon, and Capricorn rising.
I'm a Capricorn rising too, but I'm a Cancerian sun, Libra moon, and Capricorn rising. So we were dissecting this a little bit because our one of the recent guests that we interviewed, we're actually going live with that episode. It'll be your Friday, our Saturday, so tomorrow. We're actually broadcasting that episode. So it was with a guy by the name of Colin Bedell. He's actually an astrologist and the writer for Cosmopolitan magazine for the astrology section, and he dissected that to me, and it was so funny because on camera he's like telling me what those three things, like Cancer sun, Capricorn rising, and Libra moon, he was like, I felt like he was reading my soul. It was kind of scary because I'm like, whoa, I didn't, how do you know this about me? You don't even know me. He's like, that's your signs. And so now he calls me like a triple, what do you call me, a triple cardinal threat? I'm like, and so I made a joke saying, I've got Capricorn, Cancer, and Libra in me. The only thing I'm missing is Aries. Do you know any? I was like a full like. I said that live on camera and I didn't even care because I'm like, whatever. Like,
Now you said it twice live on camera. Here's the thing, right? Okay, let me tell you, I'm not an astrologer. I'm bad at astrology, but let me tell you all you need to know about that Capricorn rising. It means that you're a fucking workaholic. And if you're not being a workaholic, you're thinking about being a workaholic. You're thinking about how you can fill your time with shit that's going to make you miserable. And then you're going to do it and you're going to be like, why am I so miserable? Why don't I have time to hang out with my friends? You're going to be, oh my God, I accepted this interview, or I accepted this job, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And like, I don't have time to go to the store anymore. I can't go to the mall. Like that's what having a Capricorn rising is like.
Yeah, and I also think that we're the kings and queens of the icy clapback.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know how to throw shade, and when we do it, we're like the final word. Like there's just no coming back from that. Like
my favorite
over.
technique to do it, honestly, is there's a restrict feature on Instagram, and so people that are really really mean on Instagram comments that I can tell are like, I don't care if you're mean to me. I care if you're mean to one of my followers on my comments.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't follow me. So what I'll do is I'll restrict their account and then I'll respond to them so it looks like I got the last word, even if I didn't.
I love that. Oh my god, this is awesome. I feel like you're my spirit animal.
I just want to protect my followers. That's my goal. So
well, that to me is like it's ethically right to do as well. Like and I'm saying that as someone who, like, I don't have a massive entourage of followers like you do. I'm a wee itty bitty little social media person, but in comparison,
not my two compared to Kylie Jenner. I
yeah,
mean,
true. Like it's all levels, right? But even with that, like I don't care if you come for me, because like come for me, but just expect me to come back.
yeah.
But if you come for someone else, I'm like, no. I control my social media account. You come for someone else, I'll come for you. And
I'm gonna
like
handle that.
you may start it, I'll finish it. Like
That's exactly it. And that's why the restrict feature is just chef's kiss. Like, that's the best feature on social media. Like, you think you got the last word, baby, you did not. I got the last word, and everyone else thinks I got the last word too.
I love this. I feel like now I just want to troll your social media just to see see who you've done that with.
You would never know. You would never
Oh
know.
really? Oh, so you didn't
Yeah.
get to see the last word being posted and when they've just kind of backed down.
Because yeah, you could find that, but I haven't had to do that in a few months because with the release, I've just been really busy doing like release
Yeah.
related posts, and
Yeah.
so my spicier posts are probably like maybe from July. I
Okay.
got a little spicy in July.
I got a lot of time. I'm gonna be scrolling now.
The really spicy posts are from like June. June was a really spicy month for me. So there
Okay.
was one person who, and actually I had written, there's a free e-zine for anyone that's listening at this point. There's a free e-zine on the internet through New Moon Books. If you find them on Instagram, New Moon Books, they do an e-zine. It's free for everyone. They get authors to contribute to it. So I I'm in it. I think Judy Hall's in it, who writes on crystals.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the e-zine is Lauren Leo. He wrote the book Horse Magic with his brother Dominic Leo, who has a PhD. So it's an academic spell book, and it's not just about horses, but there's a number of authors that are in this. Anyhow, at the time that this was coming out, they had, asked me if I'd be willing, and I was like, of course I would love to write in it for you. I was like, I'm going to write on misogyny in the witchcraft community. That's the topic that I want to write on. And I did it as an op-ed. And so I did this op-ed on misogyny, and they were like, are there any pictures that you're going to provide? Would you like to? And I was like, just have the graphic designer, just have him pick whatever he wants. It's fine. So they're like, well, we're thinking about taking screenshots of some of these comments on your posts recently. And I was like, go for it. Go for it. I'm fine with that. They posted it in public forum, right? So if they're still
They've
there,
put themselves out there, yeah.
yeah. So what they did was they took, I went through and I took some of the funner ones, and they took the names of the people who commented them off, so all you see is the comment.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read in real time the kinds of things that people comment to women in the community, right? So my favorite, I'm pulling it up right now, takes like just a second to load. My favorite was this guy. I had posted, essentially the post was that it was back in like May or June, people weren't wearing masks in America, and they were like 5G, COVID, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
And I was like, no, you need to wear masks in public. So they took a screenshot, and this is literally what it says. I'm reading it word for word. This is the caption. You sound so swamped in fear of the virus that you are asleep. Exactly how they want you to be, Karen. A little fascist foot soldier for the elite, taking civil liberties away and guilting anyone who doesn't agree with you about wearing a sodding mask. Trying to make racism and mask wearing mutually exclusive is a cheap shot. Fear will lower your vibration and make you susceptible to viruses, so I suggest you turn the news off and make your own little sanctuary until this is over and stop embarrassing yourself on your page. My favorite part of that was the fascist foot soldier.
Oh yeah, fascist foot soldier. Yeah, because every witch is a fascist foot soldier.
Every witch is a fascist, especially if you wear a mask. Fascist.
Yeah. Oh, how dare you? Yeah.
Yeah. There's some good ones in there though. There's a guy that told me to go host bake sales.
Are you kidding me?
No, someone that said that I was the cause. And this is, tell yourself what you want to dismiss your responsibility for the destruction of the family. So I'm the cause of all divorces ever.
What?
There's some good ones in there. So that's only if you want the tea. Read The Familiar. It's free, and you get tons of authors. There's let me see who's in it, who contributed. I remember like looking at the contributions, and I was like, I am the smallest fry in this pool. There is, let's see here. The contributors were me, Anwen Avalon, who wrote the book Water Witchcraft. Sophia Delgado, she runs This Witch magazine. Mary Grace Faroon, she did the book Italian Folk Magic. Judy Hall, she did the
Crystal Bible.
Then we have Jess Jaron, about energetic cycles. Dominic and Lauren Leo, who wrote Horse Magic. Nicholas Pearson, who also wrote a crystal book. And the editors. So yeah, it's got a lot of authors in there that all contributed great pieces. Mine is just a hot take op-ed, but yeah, people get spicy on the internet.
I love it. I love that you're happy to clap back at them, because it's like, if you put it out there, then
if you put it on public forum, you can't be mad that someone responds to it.
And I just love when you see someone will put something out there because they're being a keyboard warrior, then they go to sleep, and then while they've been sleeping, all these people have clapped back at them, and then when they wake up, all of a sudden they're like trying to backpedal. I just love it. I love it. It actually gives me so much joy. I'm like, yeah, you should pick your battles.
Yeah, I just think, people make bad choices on the internet, and it's much easier to scroll by something you don't like or follow an account that doesn't resonate anymore than it is to pick a fight. So for me, if I see something I don't like, content I don't like, I'll just unfollow it or just scroll or mute the account. If it's a mutual that I can't unfollow, I'll mute the account. Whatever it is that I'm doing, I don't feel like it's a good use of my resources and of my energy to leave a nasty comment for someone.
Yeah, no.
And that's just my opinion. I wouldn't do it, and I don't see why people do it, but I guess they don't have anything better to do with their time.
Especially during COVID. We like, where I'm from, we were in lockdown from March to November, like literally at home from March to November. And so like a lot of people had a lot of free time on their hands, and like just in my own neighborhood, the amount of people that were like walking around, and like when we went outside walking around my state, I took my mask off, because it's like there's literally no one around me in my neighborhood right now. I'm not going to wear a mask walking around by myself. And then I saw someone was walking on the opposite side of the street, and they're like, put your mask on. I'm like, mind your business. And I just kept walking, like, because I'm like, I'm literally outdoors going for exercise. I'm not going to just like, sure enough, I put it on when I went to the shopping mall. If I was around people, like I put it on, but like I was literally walking around my block, like with no one.
If you're in Florida, people don't wear a mask when they're outside, like at all. Like when I say at all, I mean like at all. So and my friends will like rip into me because I'll be like, oh, we gotta wear our masks, and they'll be like, why are you wearing a mask? Like, you don't have to. I'll be like, I guess I could pass by someone, I could stand by someone. I was like, whatever. I just like, let me do my thing, like off of me. So but I'm in Florida, so we on top of that, I'm in Florida, I'm in America, so we've mishandled this whole thing from the beginning.
You said it, not me.
I'm an essential worker, so I've been working the whole time. I've never been home, and it's been dicey here with people and their masks, and I don't understand the aversion to, like, if you're in a public space, like, because America is not strict, right? America's not strict. It's just like if you're inside of a building in a public space, you have to wear a mask, at least where I am. They don't make you wear a mask to walk from your house to your car. So people are like losing their mind, and I'm like, if it's not big of an issue, like, have your groceries delivered to you. Like, I don't get it. I don't find, but whatever. Like, there's Amazon, there's grocery delivery, there's pizza
right
delivery.
There's so many ways you can get around it. But like, it's funny because I've traveled a lot in Asia. Over there, it's just normal, not pandemic, just normal day to day for people to wear masks, because they just wear them because of hygiene and because of like the cultural, like if you're sick, you wear a mask so you don't make anyone else sick, or because of the car fumes or whatever. Like, people just wear masks all the time, so it's like normal. So because I've traveled there, when I had to put a mask on, it was normal. It's just when it became a law in my state, I was like, oh, now that I'm told I have to, I don't want to. But I did. I still do when I go to the shopping malls and stuff like that. I'll put it on. But now we don't have to wear them outdoors. It's only if we're in close proximity to large groups of people for long periods of time. They said it's advised. So anyways, I'm gonna leave that one alone because yeah, we won't get into the political way that things are handled in this draconian
You can
state.
either just cut that whole section out. That can just be a
No, all good, all good. We don't do filtered conversations here. But yeah, no, thank you so much for joining me. I know that was a weird way to end, but I could always edit if I need to. But I'll run it by Vicky anyway, so she can see the magic that happened. The magic that happened when she wasn't here.
Magic with a C and magic with a K.
Yeah. From the McCormick Coven. Do you want to do a shout out to your coven?
Shout out to McCormick Coven, but like really genuinely shout out to McCormick Coven, because those are the people that are identifying with it are the realest people on the internet. They're keeping it so grounded and down to earth. Like, yes, use what you have in your kitchen, use what you have in your yard. Like, I love the McCormick Coven. I love everyone that's been like, I love McCormick Coven. Like, I love you guys too. So I think it's such a fun concept, and I'm glad that people are enjoying the joke, because we can't take ourselves too seriously. Otherwise, it would be so boring.
It would be. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. This has felt like super fun. I feel like I've known you for a long time, which is weird, considering we only just met today.
We did. We just met today, like right at this interview. So
hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode that we had our special guest of Temperance Alden. And as you can see, Vicky's back.
Hi!
with nice purple hair.
With purple hair and purple everything.
Purple everything. Yeah.
It's all good.
It's called gloves.
Yeah.
Do they sell them in South Australia? Do they sell them?
They do. I had them on.
But yeah, you still look like you stuck your finger in some pie. Okay. Anyway, guys, so we're going to be popping all of the handles and online all the links for Temperature's work. So if you want to follow her on social media, we'll pop them in the link below. And we've got another amazing episode coming up for you guys this Saturday, which is going to be on Litha. So stay tuned for that one. And we'll see you guys soon.
See you soon. Bye.